So how do you think studying fossils can tell you about how an organism lived? You guys told me if they're big or small, if they flew or not, omnivore, herbivore, carnivore by the teeth, tell if they lived and what they ate for food, their bones, structure, for sure. Because they wouldn't have just appeared out of thin air, meaning there must have been something here before us. Types of conditions, how long they lived, bone structure, where, when they lived, body shape, bone structure, bless you. Their diet, what they ate, their skeleton, their bones, habitat they lived in, their body specialized, proteins, a little bit in the bone marrow, yeah, also some DNA sometimes. But when I say fossil, am I talking about anything still living or any organic molecules from that organism being there? No, I'm talking about something that's been displaced with rock, essentially. So probably wouldn't be any organic molecules there. How an animal changed, how they adapted, how they survived, features they had. I'm sorry, I don't know. How many of you have talked about fossils before? Yeah. So I'm thinking we understand. We use some fossils for the Galapagos finches, but they actually used real finches for that. So we'll talk more about this in a little bit. But this section is all about talking about Darwin's theory and what it predicted, why his ideas are now widely accepted, and the strengths and weaknesses, which we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But today, we're basically going to be getting to natural selection, where everything on Earth has the potential to produce many offspring, but not all of those offspring are likely to survive and reproduce. So I went fishing this weekend, and I saw literally thousands of suckers. I went steelhead fishing, but there were more suckers in that stream than anything, or that river. And I mean, at one point, you could have just like stood on them. There were that many, and walked across the creek. Yes. Shut it off and turn it back on. And so suckers are bottom-feeding fish. Yeah, they're gross. But the steelhead weren't biting because they were standing behind the suckers eating all their eggs. They were on the beds, but then they were off, and so like no fish were biting at all. It was crazy. We caught like one fish between about 10 of us. And so, but when we did open that fish up, it had its whole tummy was just full of sucker eggs. Like that's all they were eating. And so I'm going to talk. I brought that up for a reason. But Darwin formed a key idea: individuals that have traits that are better suited for their environment are more likely to survive. And how they get to the point where they have all these different variations and these strong adaptations, they're called, is what we're here to talk about today. So all of those suckers, they make a lot of themselves, right? And so individuals that have certain traits tend to produce more offspring than others do. Why would it be advantageous to make more than can possibly survive? Why do you think suckers make so many and have so many eggs that they drop off? Fish are notorious for this. They lay millions of eggs. Why? Oops. I meant to block that out. So, because they're a big population, they have to get rid of them. Some are going back. Oh, I better lock this out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, their eggs are easily found and commonly eaten. Yeah, I found that out. Some are going to die before hatching. All the eggs won't survive. You know. See if you have anything else besides that. They don't all live. You know. How about this one? I have never seen a boy and a girl sucker raising a baby sucker. So what don't they do? They don't parent, right? They don't parent their young. So if you look at primates like humans or gorillas, we actually just have 1 or 2 babies at a time because we're going to raise that thing for, you know, in humans' case, 25 years, right? And then they might not never leave. You never know, right? So you get the idea. We put a little bit more into rearing our children or raising our young essentially salmon and fish alike drop a pile of eggs off, drop a pile of spawn off, that sperm, and that's that. And either they make it or they don't. It'd be like having a baby and just leaving the hospital, right? Well, yes. But instinctually, what do we do as a species? We take care of it, even if it's not ours, right? And so that's, you look at primates, they're like that. You'll see, I went to the animal kingdom, and I saw this one baby gorilla. I couldn't tell who his parent was because everybody was raising him, essentially. You know what I mean? Well, you could tell the mom was because she was like overprotective when another one, like a younger juvenile, would come around. So these differences are part of natural selection. Darwin proposed that natural selection is a case of evolution, is the cause, of evolution. And in this context, evolution is a change in the inherited characteristics of a population from one generation to the next. So we look at us. We're the next generation, or you are. Did you change? Do any of you are you clones of your parents, any of you? No. And so the fact that you're different than mom and dad means you're more evolved. You've evolved. Don't tell mom and dad that. We've talked about that before. Don't say, I'm more evolved than you, mom. That doesn't work well. Yeah, no, it sounds like that. But sometimes evolution can take a bad turn, right? But the idea is that every new generation changes. And the reason we have all of these variants and these changes is so that there's a lot of variety out there for nature to choose from. Notice I say nature to choose from. And so Darwin's explanation is what is called the theory of evolution by what is known as natural selection. You guys have probably talked about natural selection before. It's usually mentioned like only the strong will survive. That's sometimes true, right? Now, Darwin's theory predicts that over time, the number of individuals that carry advantageous traits will increase in a population. Does a trait have to be advantageous for it to survive is my next question, if I can get it to work. Does a trait have to be advantageous for it to survive in a population? I'm going to do a count here. Come on now. Say yes or a no. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So many no's, a few yeses. The answer is no. It does not have to be advantageous. Okay? It just has to what? It just has to survive, right? Look at the sloth. There are a lot of unadvantageous things about that sucker, right? I mean, just think about it. Like, it doesn't move fast. Like, stuff grows on it, moves so slow. That's probably why it's here. But not very strong characteristics there in an organism, but they just have to make it. That's it. Okay?
How do they make it?
Well, they live up in the trees. They're arboreal, right? So nothing can really hunt them down. Something could hunt them down if they move fast enough. They move so slow, they have lichen and moss growing on them, so they're perfectly camouflaged. They smell probably like, everything else because they're not grooming themselves too great, obviously. So that's probably why they survive. The two-toed sloth, right? So this theory that we're talking about is summarized in 4 logical steps. The first one is overpopulation, then variation within that population, selection will occur, and then an adaptation will occur after that. It will be like the result of all those things happening. And you guys are going to do a little fun activity here in a minute with this. I guess it depends on your definition of fun, right? First one is overproduction. Every population is capable of producing more offspring than can possibly survive. I saw it this weekend in the explosion of a sucker population. Who has seen the mayfly hatch? You ever see that thing? They just cover. I came out of a wedding one night when the mayfly hatch was on, and I thought my car changed colors. It had like a dark blue car, and it was white. And I was like, oh, that's. Well, I think I parked there, and I looked. I was like, that's not my car. It was white. Like, you could not see a bit of that navy blue on that car. It was covered. they're like white. They're whitish. Their wings are white, but they got a little brown in their body. But it looked like pearl, kind of, is what the car looked. And yeah, Tawas is pretty bad for them because they got a lot of herring and other things that eat them. So variation exists within every population. So first thing, if you overpopulate it within that population, you're going to have a lot of different varieties. Just like in this room. Look around you. None of you look alike. If I throw you out in the wilderness, certain ones of you will survive where other ones won't, right? We know that. We aren't going to do that, but we could test it if we really wanted to go to jail, right? We aren't going to do that. But within this room, there is a lot of variation. You guys hear that phone? It's been going off. I have no idea whose it is. I really don't. It's been doing it all day. I know, doesn't it? I can't. I don't know. I can't figure it out. What? You hear it again, don't you? Yeah, I know, but well, I wonder if it's my phone. Maybe my phone's turned down so low. I will laugh. I've been hearing that all morning going, why is that thing ringing? Oh, it is. Hello? No, it's not. That's not it. No, my phone rings like that. It does sound like this. It's coming from right here, though. This is so weird. It's been doing it all day. I can't figure it out. Yeah, I know. Ooh. Yeah, that's all the cat. Yep. All right, so in a given environment, having a particular trait can make individuals more or less likely to survive and have successful offspring. So some individuals leave more offspring than others do. I've got a question for you. Does the selecting have to kill the animal? Yeah. Does the animal have to die? Or does it have to be hurt? Or the species? For selection to occur. Like if I'm not selected for, does that mean I die? Yes or no? So no, you don't have to die, right? You just have to not what? Reproduce, right? So if I'm starving to death and I don't die, but I'm just hungry all the time, I'm looking for food. I'm not looking for Mrs. Mason, right? Okay, so you can think of it like that. So then finally, the end result will be a certain one of those variations will be chosen for. So over time, those traits that improve survival and reproduction will become more common. And so if you were a fish and you laid a lot of eggs, that would be a trait, right, that makes you able to survive more. So the fact that you can lay more eggs makes you more apt to survive, and so those genes show up the next time, right? I would imagine suckers that only lay a handful of eggs, the odds are against them surviving, right? And in a model, it would look something like this. First thing that happens is the species will overproduce. You can think of these as deer even in Michigan. Within that population, you'll have a lot of variation. The environment will choose the ones, in this case, the darker ones, probably had something to do with camouflage in this case. And finally, an adaptation will be left. The adaptation is when you actually see that trait dominating that population. That is the adaptation that you're seeing. Okay. So your assignment next is going to be this. And everybody listen carefully. We're done with notes, but just listen. You're going to be given a piece of paper. You'll have 4 quadrants of that piece of, don't shuffle your papers, just listen. You'll have 4 quadrants of that piece of paper. You will put overproduction in one, variation in another, selection in another, and adaptation in another one. You will choose a species to make up, a population of species. I don't care what it is. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Doesn't matter to me. Okay? Works. So, first thing I want to see in the first square is lots of them. Okay? So you'll draw many teenage mutant. You may have like, I don't know, 20 in there, whatever. Then, the next square, I want to know a minimum of 4 different variants. You don't have to draw a bunch at this point, but I want to see the 4 different types of what are there. So if I'm talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm talking about like the one with a staff, the one with a scythe, the one with little nunchucks, the one with the swords, right? Okay? So which one? And then those are the different varieties. The next one is selection. I want to see 3 of those die or not make it or not reproduce. Okay? And you might say, okay, this one died because it didn't do this. And you'll show why the other one actually survived. Okay? So that makes it which one killed Shredder, whatever you want to say. Okay? And then adaptation in the end, I want to see a bunch of that one type and maybe just a few of the other ones still hanging out. Okay? You guys think you can handle that? It's pretty straightforward. On the back side, though, I want you to list and tell me in a sentence or 2 about your organism and how it shows overproduction, variation, selection, and adaptation, and kind of describe what you drew. Do you have to have color? Yes. Color sticks are in the back right corner of the room, left corner of the room. Your artistic ability is limited. I won't be